Back on Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Head to youtube.com, put Locked On Sports Atlanta in the search browser. When you find our page, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Of course, we're free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify and Odyssey. Download us for free. Hit that 5-star review button if you would, and give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. So as we're moving rapidly toward the trade deadline, which is coming up here, in just over a week or so here for the trade deadline. You know, there's an old saying in wrestling that says, plans change, pal. We'll talk about that guy coming up in the next segment. But things have changed in a short amount of time. We got news yesterday that Adam Duvall is going to be out for the season with surgery on his wrist, and he's done for the year. And obviously, he spent the first part of the year playing every day in center field. So another bat that you don't have that's available, and certainly one of your better defensive outfielders. So you're missing him. We just got done talking about the idea of Ian Anderson and him not being able to figure some things out. Okay, if he can't figure some things out, do you go get yourself a veteran at the trade deadline? And obviously, the Braves you're always looking. I saw Kirby Yates doing some minor league rehab starts, right? And just throwing some balls and stuff like that. So maybe Yates is going to come back. You're always looking for back-end bullpen help, right? There's no such thing as having too many relievers, especially if you're a playoff team in Major League Baseball. So starter, reliever, outfielder. What are the Braves looking at as far as adding to this roster? Now, I said last week, and I still believe this, I'm not in the market for a starter. I think even with Ian Anderson's struggles and even some of Spencer Strider's struggles, and the fact that you may have to watch him on an innings count and things like that, personally, I still think you use your young guys. I still think you use your Bryce Elders and your Tucker Davisons and people like that. Still think you use those guys to fill in your gaps if you need, because you want to keep finding out about some of those guys. With all due respect, the Braves farm system right now is definitely depleted. In the last couple of years, you've traded all of your top prospects. Drew Waters, Shea Langoliers, Christian Pache, right? You drafted a couple of kids that you drafted over the last year or two here. So you've started depleting your farm system. And Strider and Michael Harris from your 2020 draft are now on the Major League club. So again, there's not a huge depth and dearth of talent right now in the Braves minor league system. That's why trading for Soto and things like that is probably not realistic, but we're not talking about that right now. I don't think you need to go get another starter. I'm still going to stay with that. I'm going to figure out Ian Anderson. I'm going to figure out Strider. I'm going to get them right. And if I need to mix in Tucker Davison, Bryce Elder, whatever you go find a guy, right? Whatever you have to do, find a guy in your minor league system and let them come up and make a start or two if you need to. Spot start them in throughout. But I've got to figure out, like I just got done saying, I got to figure out Ian Anderson, Strider up here and get that done. Outfielder, that's an interesting proposition because, look, Benintendi, a guy that some people thought the Braves might go after, he's gone already, right? So he's off the marketplace. Are you looking for a starting outfielder? Maybe. You know, look, I know the easiest names that people have thrown out there are Jorge Soler and Jock Peterson. Well, number one, the problem with Soler is if you have to play him out in the field. I don't want him playing left field every day. If my choices are Ozuna and Soler, that's definitely becoming a defensive liability at that point. So I need a guy who's competent in playing the outfield. Jock Peterson makes some sense. I always like the idea of having an extra lefty bat. And let's face it, when you're going to see the Mets, who are their two best pitchers, right? DeGrom and Scherzer. You'd like the idea of having another left-handed bat to take those guys on. Now, look, I understand. Historically, if you look at Peterson's numbers against Scherzer and DeGrom, they're not exactly eye-popping. But from a Snitker, I like to play the matchup perspective. I just as soon have Jock Peterson hit against those right-handers as I would watch Duvall flail away against DeGrom and Max Scherzer. So at least Jock would be a viable option, playing in the outfield, playing, left field, giving you another left-handed bat to complement Rosario, because obviously with him and Arcia and some other guys that you have available on the roster. The other thing too is, by the way, that Snitker updated yesterday that there has been no update on Ozzie Albies. And I know they went and picked up Cano, but how well and how great has Cano, been? Now, Arcia was a guy who early in the year was tremendous filling in at second base for the Braves. But, Cano's hitting 222. He's got no homers and he's got exactly one extra base hit. He's 4 for 18 at this point. So he's not lighting the world on fire by any stretch of the imagination. And Arcia is down to 245. Do you have to maybe go find yourself a second baseman if Ozzy's going to be out for an extended period of time and get back to using Arcia really more as just a bench guy? I think the idea of finding a competent left fielder at this point and bullpen help, you can always find bullpen help. So I think the Braves are going to go find bullpen help. But right now, I prioritize outfield over starting pitching. And I'll be honest with you, I probably prioritize second base if we're not going to get Ozzy Albies back anytime soon over even another starter. I think the Braves can figure out their starters with the guys that they have. And if you mix in a young guy or two, right? If you go out there, and again, I've just given you a few names, mix in a young guy or two to spot start here or there. Because to be honest with you, the first three are figured out. I've got Fried, I've got Kyle Wright, I got Charlie Morton. Got those guys figured out. So worst case is I know I've got my top three locked, loaded, and ready to go. That's a pretty good position to be in. You're not looking for an ace. You're not looking for a second start. You got your top three. We're talking about trying to figure out your fourth and fifth starters, okay? Rather than going out and making a bunch of moves to try to find a guy to bring in to be a fourth or fifth starter, I'd rather work with my guys that I have and even bring up, again, if I need an Elder or a Davidson for a start or two here or there, bring those guys up and let them do their thing up here. And those guys have pitched at the big league level. Not always effectively, but they've pitched at the big league level out there. This is where your pitching coach is supposed to figure some things out, right? Like your pitching coach is supposed to get some of these guys on track. I keep going back to that, but that was the point of having a pitching coach. That they're throwing footballs in the outfield with the guys or what? So anyway, I think an everyday left fielder like a Jock Peterson, they can find a way to bring him back. And remember, you're talking about a Jock Peterson who's going to be a free agent, so he's not here long term. He's a free agent at the end of the year, so you're going to pick up part of that salary. The Braves are already paying Jock Peterson, by the way, if you don't know. If you look at the Giants have a certain amount of his salary, and the Braves have another piece of his salary. So Braves have some money already invested in Jock Peterson. If it's not Jock Peterson, the idea would be to find a guy who you could play on a consistent basis in left field, not a mishmash rotation of if it was Soler, Rosario, Ozuna, or what have you. Go find a legitimate guy that defensively doesn't kill you and can play every day out in the outfield. And I like the idea of having a left-handed bat with that. That's why I kind of keep going back to Jock Peterson. I like the idea of having a left-handed bat to be able to plug into that lineup when I start to see all those right-handers within my division, right? The Aaron Nolas and Alcantaras and DeGrom and Scherzer and things like that. I'd much rather have that left-handed bat matchup to go against all the right-handed starters within my division. So I think outfield first, second base second, bullpen I'm just going to throw in there because, look, you can't have enough bullpen guys. Even if you have the best bullpen in baseball, you go get another bullpen arm, right? That's easy to do. You go find some guy that a team done won, give a couple prospects and bring a guy in, right? That's easy enough. But I'll take outfield and second base even before I get into finding my next starter through all of this. All right, when we come back, something that I never thought that I would see in my lifetime. We will talk about that next. It's Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta.